Welcome, listeners. I am so excited to have an amazing guest today. I always say the Lean In Women in the Workplace report is like my Christmas morning when I get a hold of that report each year, and it is out today. And I'm joined with Rachel Thomas, who's the co-founder and CEO of leanin.org, an organization that helps women achieve their ambitions and works to create an equal world. Under Rachel's leadership, the Lean In community has grown to more than 100,000 peer groups they call circles, and Lean In has become a go-to resource for original research and programming to support women at work. Rachel frequently writes and speaks on issues affecting women's advancement and is in the lead author of Lean In's annual Women in the Workplace report study, which we're going to talk about today, and is the largest study of state of women in corporate America. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to dig into this year's findings. You do this every year. You've done it for 11 years. And
This is
I'm just
11th
curious,
year. Yes. I can't believe it.
right?
Yeah.
There's obviously similar themes that pop up year to year, but for this year's report, like what stuck out to you as unique or different?
Obviously, this is a unique moment in time to be putting out the report. And the finding that left me gobsmacked was only half of companies say they're highly committed to women's career advancement. And then if you look even more deeply at the numbers, a little over 20% say they're placing low or no priority on women's career advancement. And that number rises to 29% for women of color's career advancement. So that is a alarming signal in the data that companies may be rolling back their commitment to women at a time when we need them to be doing quite the opposite. And then the other finding that I think is a bookend is that for the first time, women are notably less ambitious than men. So they're less interested in getting promoted to the next level. And I think that's because they're feeling some of that lack of commitment in workplaces. I mean, we know that that ambition gap falls away when women are receiving the same types of career supports, the same sponsorship, the same advocacy, same opportunities, and yet we know that women still don't do that. So it's an interesting moment where women, companies are signaling they're rolling back commitment. Women are signaling they're feeling it, and it may be impacting how they look up at the next level of advancement. And I think we should all be concerned that we're at risk of really unwinding the hard-earned progress we've seen over the last decade.
Yep, yep, absolutely. Because that number was higher, the support for women's advancement. That has actually decreased in the last 4 to 5 years, correct?
It is part of a declining commitment to gender diversity. And that, of course, is concerning when we know that lots of, there is a direct link between being committed to gender diversity
Hmm.
and offering the same type of career supports and having a higher representation of women. So it only
Yep.
follows that if that starts to fall away, we're going to start to see the numbers soften. And that's the exact opposite of what I know you and I want to see. And I think pretty much everybody hopefully wants
Yeah.
to see.
It is a moment in time, hopefully a short one, but it is a real moment. And we need data like this to tell the story, so to get people's attention of this is impacting people, half the population are women in the world. Don't we want to engage them? It seems strange to me. I think that the thing that popped out to me that was different than previous years was the real call to action around sponsorship, Rachel. Like that when I talk about allyship, often, mentoring, sponsoring, coaching, et cetera, there's all these different roles, but sponsorship I have always found to be consistently the least utilized role in career development for women. And your data really shows a separation that men are getting sponsors much earlier in their careers.
That's right. Not only are men getting sponsors more, so we know 31% of entry-level women, for example, have sponsors compared to 45% of men. That's a really big gap. So to your point, there is a sponsorship problem. We've seen this in our data for years, but there's a couple things this year that I think even bring it into higher relief. So first of all, we asked beyond sponsorship about actions that are often considered sponsorship or advocacy style actions. And we know that entry level women are less likely to get stretch opportunities. We know they're less likely to be put up for promotion. Wait for this. They're even less likely to be introduced to someone who could help their career, which sounds pretty easy to do. And then on top of that, we looked at remote work this year. And entry level women who work remotely most of the time are far less likely to have a sponsor than entry level men. And the gap is huge. And interestingly enough, regardless of where early career men work, they get about the same levels of sponsorship and they're about as likely to get promoted. So
Hmm.
I think this data really matter. And what I like about it is, companies cannot change everything that's happening in the world and all the signals they're receiving in the media and on social media and even on dinner table conversations about women's leadership, but they can change the systems internally. And so they can put a laser focus on sponsorship. Because in our data this year, we know that employees of all employees who have sponsors are twice as likely to get promoted. This is commonsensical. And this tracks to lots of third-party research that shows a direct link between having high quality sponsorship and advancing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's so interesting how these informal relationship structures happen so quickly in early in careers and set up the trajectory. Because the pipeline report that I always love, in the report, there's clear like at the entry levels, like there's a lot of equitable representation. Like it kind of looks like America and the world looks like, but then as you go up there is an over representation by a specific demographic. And I think, Rachel, I'm just kind of curious the framing on that, given this moment in time. I think when we talk about representation numbers, this like zero sum game kind of triggers. Did you see any of that in like the research this year? Or because probably one of the other takeaways I had is like either you're in or out on this. Like it definitely seems like there's like an in camp and an out camp and not a lot of in between. But I'm just so curious what your take is.
Yeah, so a couple things. So when you look at companies, we did see signals that they're walking back practices that we know are particularly important to women. So formal sponsorship is one of those areas where companies are rolling back. So back to that in a minute. They're also rolling back career development programs
Hmm.
with content tailored, not specifically for women, but tailored for women to address
Hmm.
the barriers that they're facing. And then a big one was 1 in 4 companies have been rolling back remote work options, and they're also rolling back flexible work options as well. So that's kind of one signal on top of the priorities companies are placing on women. That's some signals that companies are rolling back. And then the signals on employees are really interesting. So we asked employees, do you think that promotions and hiring should be free of bias and fair? Universally, employees say yes. We asked employees, do you think that when employees feel respected and valued, they're motivated to do their best work? Universally, again, employees agree. And on, but then there are men are feeling some concern and feeling put out. And we know that there has been a backlash in the system. So a higher percentage this year of men at all level, and particularly our men in senior roles, they are worried their gender hurts them. And that tracks to outside research that shows that, it's kind of a peak over the last 20 years where men are more concerned about what their future career prospects look like than they've ever been. Um, and this is what we need to do. We do need to get rid of this zero sum thinking because the reality is meritocratic systems are good for everybody over the long term, right? The best people rise to the top, and that is good for everybody. And we also need to get rid of the backwards thinking that I think is more and more prevalent this year that somehow the system is already meritocratic.
Hmm.
So, for the 11th year, we've seen that there's a broken rung at that first critical promotion to manager. So, to your point, men and women at the entry level, and it looks pretty good. Like it looks pretty
Hmm.
close to, the population. I mean, women are getting more university degrees, so maybe not as good as it could, but it looks pretty strong, those early numbers. And then for some reason, entry-level women are far less likely to get promoted to manager. For every 100 men promoted this past year, only 93 women were, and the numbers are far lower for Asian women and Latinas, only 82 women, and far, far lower for Black women, only 60 women. And I have been saying for years and believe this so deeply that broken rung, I believe is the biggest data-driven evidence that the system is still not fair or meritocratic. Because you
Mhm.
have to believe one or two things, Julie. You actually have to believe that men are significantly more talented than women, and that's why that they're getting promoted at such higher rates early in their careers, or that there's some type of bias and snap judgment in the system that is holding early career women back.
Yeah. Yeah. It was Lorena Yee's book earlier this year, The Broken Rung. Was that right, Rachel? I
It was,
interviewed her
yes,
on the
yes.
podcast as well. And I agree with you. Like it is the most compelling business-backed research you want to see on that topic. And we all lose when we're not maximizing the
I
talents of all
mean,
genders.
this is the future like for all genders at the entry. I mean, these are our future leaders, and so men need to be held to the same standards because so they're learning the same skills and they're equipped to be the best leaders that they can be. And then women need to be held to the same standards so they have the same opportunity. Because as you alluded to, and anyone who's good at math knows what happens is that means there's less women at manager level, which means there's
Mhm.
less to promote to senior manager and less to promote to director and so on and so on. And we really saw this last year in our 10-year data when we really looked at the state of the workplace, which is the progress for women in leadership, which on one hand, you really want to celebrate. Like there's been a lot of progress, particularly up at the VP level, the SVP level, the C-suite, but it's surprisingly fragile because a lot of it was done by hiring in as
Mhm.
opposed to lifting up and promoting from within, which means it's questionable how sustainable that is. And so when you look at like our findings over the last decade, which really the net was, you've done a lot well, corporate America, but wow, is it fragile, right? And
Yeah.
like, do not take your eye off the ball. And then to see this year where it looks like they may be taking their eye off the ball,
Mhm.
that's why I think the data this year is so concerning.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good way to frame it and look at it. And I think create a sense of urgency with companies, Rachel. I really loved the last part of the report has some really great strategies that I agree I have seen and facilitated inside organizations that I think are truly impactful sponsorship programs. ERGs were at least I didn't see in your data. I'm not experiencing that commitment back off. If anything, ERGs seem to be increasing in activity this year because of the D and
Yes.
the I words that we want to kind of maybe avoid. ERGs feel safer for companies. Um, but I really liked how you targeted the middle manager. And I'm just so curious about like why is the middle manager's role in career development so important, and especially important for women?
I mean, when we think about managers, right? They are on the front lines of team dynamics. They're on the front lines of who gets stretch assignments, who gets the extra nudge they need to go for it, who gets really concrete, helpful career advice that could make or break you. I mean, all of those things are people managers and, are mid-career people managers who have big early career teams under them often. They are really on the front lines of all this. And to your point, it's really interesting. So every year, here's what we see about our people managers. We see they're doing a lot of the right things. They're asking about career. They're, looking for opportunities to promote their team's accomplishments. They're checking in on their team's well-being. The problem is they're not doing any of it with consistency. So
Mm,
to me, this signals there's intent that companies have been clear. This is something we want you to do. And I believe that managers want to be good people managers, right? They want to be managed well and lifted up themselves. But what we know from outside research is only, I think it's 7%. I think that's right. 7% of managers say they have the time they need
mhm,
to be a good people manager.
mhm,
And so one of the things that we've been talking about for the last couple of years, and I really hope like breaks through this year, particularly with the rise of AI, is how are we freeing up manager time from some of the
mhm,
day-to-day things they do now, and then really being explicit with them and giving them the tools to refocus that to make sure they're offering consistent, high quality, and equally distributed career opportunities and supports because I think that of course could be a huge unlock. I mean, we've been saying for years, the first wave for companies is having all the right policies and programs in place. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, this year's, we're seeing some backing off of that. But the next wave is bringing all your managers along with you.
Hmm.
So they are really holding up the values and the principles behind those policies and practices. And then the third wave is actually changing the cultural work. So the way we all show up with each other is respectful and inclusive and looking for opportunities for one another. And that's I think the holy grail of the change that we need to see. But absolutely focusing on managers and making sure they have the time and the tools to get this right could be an unlock. Because as I said, I don't think it's intent. I think it's time and tools.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I hear that all the time. Like I love, coaching my team. I just don't have enough time to do it. And I think what you're saying, Rachel, and I love that idea is keep thinking about AI as replacing jobs. Like what if it could free up more time for us to do our jobs better? And the people part, as far as I know, some of the AI programs I'm sure can do some feedback and coaching, but it probably is best coming from an actual human being.
I
And
prefer the AI to do some of the other things
right,
and let our
right, like
managers do
data
those people.
analysis,
Yes,
things like that.
exactly.
But it seems to me like an incredible opportunity and time to reinvent work and workloads and redistribute more critical thinking tasks and more of these management skills into managers' daily routines. And I'm just not seeing organizations take advantage of this opportunity right now. So this is a really great call to action for companies to be thinking about. If you had a magic wand or got to pick like what skills you'd want to upskill for managers to be more inclusive, like what is the data telling us on like the skill gaps that we need to see managers elevate?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they need to the consistency. The
Hmm.
consistency, the follow through is absolutely critical. And I think a lot of managers, it's hot and cold. Yeah, they do it at they do it at certain times and then they fall off. Or also, Kate, Julie, to be perfectly honest, like they do it like they feel like they're doing it well.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the quality with which it's being delivered doesn't really land for the report that it's actually being done really well and really thoughtfully and it's going to
yeah.
lead to results. So I think that's like I think that's a big I think that's a big piece of it. So that laser focus on managers and then honestly making it as easy as humanly possible. So here's some things they could do, like scripts. Managers don't need to follow them word for word, but scripts
Mhm.
for one-on-ones. An area where we know managers tend to fall down for everybody, but particularly for women, is really concrete, specific, actionable feedback. General
Mhm.
feedback for anybody, but women often get it like you just aren't carrying yourself like a leader. Or
Yeah,
like you just need to
executive
be
presence.
right, like yeah, I mean, no one knows what to do with that. So how do you get under that as a manager and challenge yourself to really get specific and how do companies help you do that? And then companies can also build more of this into things that are already happening. Managers can get trained while they're onboarding into their company so that they have the right skills. They can build more and more of this leading up to performance reviews. And then also, we know that relatively few companies actually hold managers accountable around career development and employee well-being. And we think that is an area of real unlock is just build it into the manager's performance reviews. It is like anything else, what gets measured is often what gets done. And for companies that say there's no way to measure this, there of course is. You can ask teams very specific questions about manager supports that can then be used to evaluate how managers are doing.
No. Oh, I love that. You hit on so many things that I often speak to. It's the consistency, the intentionality behind it, and senior leaders really modeling that for the organizations that middle
Yep.
managers aren't trying to figure out how to give feedback and how to coach. If they're seeing it modeled from the top, then they can also be kind of taking notes. So it's it's just setting up a culture where this is, like you said, like we're really just taken seriously. And if we're taking anything seriously, it would be in our performance reviews and how much we manage performance and just finding a way to
100%.
embed
Yes.
inclusion into those steps. I find organizations still struggle with, but like you said, it's not hard. Like we can ask some questions. And I think if you are really know, you know the managers that are doing this and the ones that aren't. And if the ones that aren't are being rewarded in the form of promotion and pay increases, and that's sending a whole signal to the organization that this isn't really important if you're allowed to behave opposite of that and still be perceived as a top performer. And so so many wrinkles to this, Rachel. I'm so thankful for your research each year. I'm so glad that you're reporting in a very genuine, fact-based way, as always. But as you said, we're at a moment in time where sometimes it's uneasy to tell the truth. And so I'm just really thankful that your organization continues to show up and tell the truth. And before we drop off, I just love if there's something we haven't talked about from the research or something you're really excited about nowadays with Lean In, I'd love for you to share.
The biggest message I want companies to take in, company leaders to take in is 2025 was a challenging year. The economy's challenging. The legal landscape has changed. AI is just disruptive. So, for those of you who took your eye off the ball when it comes to women's advancement, 2026 is the year to recommit. So, I think that's a really important message. And then I hope everyone will read the report because I think for leaders, there are so many insights that hopefully will be an unlock on like a really specific action you can take. Like, for example, I try to practice what I call micro sponsorship, which is at the beginning of every month, thinking about all the people in my orbit and is there something I can do to help them? And this doesn't take a lot of time and it can really make a difference. And then I hope women read it and it helps them feel validated because I think a lot of the things they're feeling and seeing like are here in big data and that doesn't change the state of things, but sometimes I think it feels really good to know that you're not alone and there's big data that say that your experiences are indeed the experiences of many women at work.
Mhm. And there's solutions. What I love about
And
your
there are
research is not all
solutions.
doom and
There are
gloom. Like
definitely
there are
solutions.
specific strategies there, wonderful strategies that every organization can do. So thank you,
Yeah,
Rachel. I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. I'll link to the new Lean In Women in the Workplace report that is out today. I'll link to that in the show notes. Thanks for all your great work.
Oh, thank you very much.